Welcome to Learning to Glow, a show about wellness, skin health, and self-development. I'm your host, Jess. I'm a mom, entrepreneur, and skincare expert. I'm so excited to share tips on how to achieve healthy skin and bring amazing guests in the field of health, fitness, aging gracefully, and personal growth. Let's explore all different ways we can take care of ourselves as women, both inside and out, to truly shine. So let's get glowing. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Learning to Glow podcast. I'm your host, Jess. Thank you so much for being here today. We have a great and timely episode all about the upcoming holiday season, the holiday season that we're in, and the pressure and stress that can sometimes go along with that. Our guest is Rachel Marie Martin, who believes in the power of the human spirit to overcome, to thrive, and to find deep joy. She is the writer behind the site findingjoy.net and author of The Brave Art of Motherhood and her new book, Mom Enough. Her articles have been translated into over 25 languages. Her site reaches millions of visitors per month, and she has written dozens of letters to moms covering topics from babies to toddlers, to the overwhelming days, to the silence of middle schoolers, to letting go of teenagers. Her articles have reached over 50 million moms worldwide. Her content has been featured in the Huffington Post, the Today Show, Star Tribune, and many, many more. We had a wonderful conversation. She is lovely about the holidays and letting go of perfectionism. She says she calls herself a recovering perfectionist. And we talked about the traditions, different stages of life, motherhood. Rachel is amazing. I will link where you can connect with her online, and her new book, Mom Enough, is out now. I'll link that as well. I hope you love this episode. Rachel's amazing, and here she is. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Learning to Glow podcast. I'm your host, Jess, and today we have a special guest with us, Rachel. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here today.
I'm so happy to see you, and I'm so excited about this topic that we're going to be talking about. And this is such a good, for the time of year that it is, we're going to be talking about the holiday season and kind of letting go of perfect. And you're an author. You have a new book, which congratulations.
Thank you.
And you have a website called Finding Joy. And I want to have you kind of introduce yourself a little bit and tell us what you do, and then I would love to hear your story of how you started all of this and got into all this. And we have a lot of moms listening, so this is perfect.
All right. Well, that's cool. I always laugh because I'm like, do I do the long, short, medium version of this story? So I've always been kind of a techie girl and a writer. And I started online writing in the 2000s, but it was in Yahoo groups back before Yahoo group, before the blogs exploded. And then somebody had said, you should start a blog. And I'm like, well, what's a blog? So I did. And I started on Blogspot in the middle 2000s. I don't even know how to say that. It's like, is it 2000s? What do you say? 2010s, all of that. But I started, and I remember the moment when I tried to think of the title, and I typed in Finding Joy, and that has been what stuck. The cool thing about that Finding Joy thing is years later, I found something my grandmother wrote to me, and it said, may you live a life of finding joy. So I always feel like, wow, that's been in my life forever. Aww. But yeah, it was really cool. And I started writing online, and in the beginning, like most of us I would say some of us when we start, I didn't know exactly the direction I wanted to go, but I found it. I started writing letters to moms, and I started writing a lot about not losing yourself in your motherhood journey and in your life journey. And those letters are what led to the book that you referred to, Mom Enough. And the letters have been kind of this catalyst place for moms to realize that it's really okay to take care of yourself, to follow your dreams, and you can be a good mom while doing all of that.
I love that. And it's so funny because I think back to becoming a new mom, and a lot of us really do need that permission to be like what you just said, taking time to take care of ourselves, and that's important too. I think especially as a new mom, you're kind of just so focused on other people and the baby and the kids. And I think that's it's almost like a lot of moms need that permission to, oh yeah, me too. And I've read some of your blogs about
mom guilt. And I think that's something that comes up a lot, especially around that topic. Would you say
Yeah, I would
yeah.
say mom guilt is huge. I had my first child in 1996. So it's been a lot. It's been a while. We can all do the math there. And I remember having mom guilt back then, but there was no internet. It was like the Family Fun magazine would come to my house and I would look at it and I would look at it like I have to do all this stuff. And with the internet, I feel like there's a lot of pressure. Like we can see everything everybody else is doing. And where the mom guilt creeps in often is instead of going, I could choose to do that, it's almost seen as like we're expected to do all of that. And when we can move back from, you know what, I don't have to do that. I don't have to do Elf on the Shelf. I don't have to do all that stuff to be a good mom. It can kind of lessen the mom guilt. The other thing about mom guilt is I tell people, like, it's like worrying. It also means that you really invested in being a good mom. So don't feel guilty about feeling the guilt. It means you really do care.
Absolutely. I know. I think that's like, then it's a double whammy because when
Right.
you're, and that goes with anything. If you're feeling a certain feeling and then you feel bad about having that feeling, then you're like double whammy, like upset. So that's never
Right. In
helpful.
the cycle, like, what is spinning?
Yes. And then you got the anxiety that comes in from that. So that's never a good thing. So let's start talking about this holiday season because I know this is a big source of stress. And one thing that you said is like you didn't have the internet when you first became a mom.
Mm-hmm.
And now we see so many things and we feel so many expectations. It's like, oh, you have to go to Target and you have to buy all that's one big thing that got me like lately, or I feel like I've finally moved past this. But at first I was like, oh my gosh, like I
Right.
don't have any decorations. I
Right.
haven't spent enough money decorating my house. Like it doesn't look like that person's house.
That is so true. And Target is very good at making, at least for me too, like thinking, you know what, I need that. I need that in my house. And then the holidays are over and then I have to store it. And then that makes me think, I really didn't need all of that. My husband and I are now like, we need to whittle down the holiday box to a little bit less because for me, that's one of the things with the holidays too is I'm all for the people that go all out because I'm not about like thinking comparison, that comparison where you're like, oh, that we shouldn't do that. If that brings you joy, that brings you joy. It's really about figuring out what works for you. Like for me, I tend to be a little bit more minimal with what I like. So having all that I know actually makes me get anxious. Like if it's too cluttered, I already know. So then that adds an extra layer of stress in a busier time. So for me in my house, I've adopted less is more. But that doesn't mean my neighbors have to do that or the people across the street or you have to do it. It's really figuring it out and knowing that Target, it's a retailer. They want us to buy stuff.
Yeah. And I feel like that's such a good point of knowing this why you're doing it, right? I'm doing this because I love to decorate. I love
Right.
to make my house look a certain way and not like this because I've had the feeling before of like, oh, I should do this.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you do. And that's something that figuring out like the real reason why you're doing something like that is a good point for sure.
Yeah, because we do stuff. I think we don't often question why we're doing it. It's just we've always done it this way, so we're going to do it this way. So we keep doing it, and then all of a sudden one day we're like, "Why am I even doing that? What's the importance?" For me, like the things that are important in the holiday season. I mean, I love baking cookies with my kids, and that's been a huge thing. But it's been like a generational thing, so that is probably why that's important to me. But there's been holidays where it's just not been done and we made it through and the holiday was still good. And the kids probably aren't going back going, in 2009, we didn't have cookies. So there's just perspective.
I know. And I remember thinking that one year too. We have traditions, and one year, we went out of town
Hmm.
and there was a time and I was like, it doesn't have to be, it can still be a tradition. Even
Right.
if you skip a year, like it can still be that annual tradition. I missed a year of doing, going to every single neighbor's house and dropping off cookies. We have a long street too. So it did not
Impressive.
happen.
Right.
And then I was like, a little upset. And I was like, oh, I didn't do this one thing. This is our tradition. But then I was like, no, this can still be a tradition.
Right. And the kids sometimes, like, when you skip a year, that makes that year more memorable. Like, remember the year when this happened? So one of the things my kids and I have done for a long time is we get a real tree and then we cut the bottom of the tree off where the trunk is, and we save the little piece that they cut off, and I write the date on it. So that tradition to me is like, of everything we do, that's what the kids look forward to. I know if we missed a year, they'd be like, well, remember in 2023, we didn't get the tree, but it wouldn't be a bad thing. It would just give them something to talk about.
I love that's a great one. What a great tradition. So, one of the things, as far as talking about how to let go of being perfect this holiday season, do you have experience with being that perfectionist type? Is that how you were as a mom, or were you always like the personality that you have today as a mom?
I would say I'm always a recovering perfectionist. I have that part of me that's like, I just would get so frustrated if it couldn't be perfect in a way. So then I would procrastinate, which is a lethal combination. Like, if you just can't do those two things together because nothing gets done. But the perfectionist part, that where I learned where it doesn't need to be perfect was when I realized that the perfection was robbing me from being happy, like the joy part. And I tell a story about one year where I got everything ready and then the Christmas tree fell over, because that's the like logistics of having a real tree is you got to balance it, you got to, teeter it right, you got to make sure things are right. And I got it all set up, and then literally 30 minutes later the whole tree falls over and all these ornaments broke. And I remember being like, it's okay, until I saw my daughter Grace's like first year baby ornament. I think it was like some Precious Moments little rocking chair thing, or rocking horse thing, and it was snapped in half, and I started to cry. And one of my older kids were like, you know what, it's all right, and now Grace, she's married and she has that ornament and it's glued together and it's a memory. And so
That's
in the
sweet.
perfect, they talk about that. Remember the year the tree fell over?
Right. And everything was probably fine.
It
And
was.
I
It
love that
was.
you glued it back together. That's perfect.
It was. It works. It's just what life is. I mean, you just have to. What I've learned is you just have to adapt, and the easier we can adapt, and we give ourselves grace to adapt, the less that perfectionism kind of presses down on us. Because it's not that I'm not aiming for it to be really good. It's just that I know, like, you know what, there's a good chance something's going to go crazy. And when that, if you have that little wiggle room for the moments that don't go as planned, then it's not as much pressure on you.
So what would you say are some tips for us moving forward? Like if we do have that type of personality, or we're wanting to make a very special, memorable holiday, or we're hosting
Mhm.
and we're feeling like it has to be a certain way and the stress is kind of mounting. What are some tips that you have for us?
Well, that the stress is normal. I think that's the other part. We start to feel guilty, like, oh, I shouldn't be stressed out about this right now. I should feel like excited and happy. But if you're having 30 people over to your house and you have kids, there's a level of stress. There's a level of responsibility there. And it's not that it's necessarily bad. It's just that you're out of your normal lane. You're doing something which we don't normally do, probably in May, June, and July, is we're having this moment that we're wanting to spend with people. The other thing is really to decide what works best for you. That is the hugest lesson I've learned is we're going to see a ton of different things. Some people will do that 3 gift rule: one book, one clothing item, one toy. And some people will do, the presents don't matter. And there's all these different things that you'll read. But each family, you get to decide, like, does this work for my family? And does this bring me joy ultimately? Does this make my holiday better or not? Does it add a layer of something? And then the other thing is, you're just going to be busy. Like when December comes up, I look at the calendar, and especially when my kids were young, when school would be like, okay, we're going to have this cute little program this day, we're going to have this day. And everybody has those programs. It's just that month of like, okay, I already know going in, it's going to be busy. and trying to carve moments in there where you almost can breathe in the busy. Like instead of being grumpy that the Starbucks line is super long, could be grateful, like there's a moment to pause as I'm moving through here. And it's just reframing almost everything.
And having like that perspective too. I love that because it's like your expectations are appropriate. Like, you know what this,
Right.
it's not, it shouldn't be a surprise that there's a line at Starbucks in
Right.
December.
Right.
Like,
Exactly. Like there's going to be extra traffic. I really believe that what makes the holidays hard is the life still happens during the holidays, and a lot of people have had hard stuff that's happened throughout the year. So then the holidays is like kind of like shining a light on it. Like the first Christmas I had after I went through my divorce, it was like this glaring light was on there, and it felt like the world around me was still moving at this kind of frenzied normal pace, and I was dealing with it. So that's the other part with the holidays that makes it a little bit interesting, is because most people have another layer to their story, which is why I'm always like, just be kind. Be kind to the person in front of you in Starbucks and behind you and the barista and all of that, because we're all walking through life with these stories. And from the outside, you might not know what that other person's story is. And where there's that little bit of extra agitation, that's rough during the holidays if you're already at your limit and you're around people that are stressed out. So kindness makes a huge difference.
yeah. I feel like that's another thing that can be tough with the internet.
Mm-hmm.
When you are going through something that is challenging and everybody looks like they're having the best season and like
Right.
everything's great, and then you're thinking, well, it's this holiday for me and I should feel like that too, but I'm also navigating, you went through a divorce, it could be a sickness, an illness, a death, like there's so
Mm-hmm.
many, maybe you're just like stressed out to the core and you're just not feeling the level of joy that you feel like other people are. And
Right.
that's another good reminder to not believe everything that you see online.
That's so true. I always tell people, like, if I turn my camera just a little bit, you'd be like, wow, she's got a lot of stuff on her desk right now. But do you see that? No, you just see this snapshot, this vision that I've put out there. And as a content creator, I've been creating online for a long time, and I've seen that kind of evolution of what it looked like. And now there's a lot more emphasis in kind of really showing the real behind the scenes. And I've seen it a lot on Instagram with people and influencers. And we all intuitively know, like we know, oh, there's filters, there's that we know that the camera, like that's the perfect shot. And it's reminding ourselves, this is the snapshot they've chosen to show right now. And there's a lot more to it. And instead of judging it, maybe I've always decided, I'm just going to be really proud of that person. Like, that is a cool picture. That's an awesome setup. I'm really proud of what you did, because maybe for them, that brought them a lot of joy.
When I first started my wellness journey, I had already been in the skincare industry for years, working on client skin and as an educator for multiple skincare brands. When I learned about how the toxins in our personal care and beauty products could have a negative impact on our health, I knew I needed to make a change. I was used to the result-driven products that I was working with, and I was not happy with the natural products on the market at that time. Although they were safer and cleaner, they did not meet my expectations for results. I created Simply Just Skincare to deliver the results my clients demanded from their products while using natural, toxin-free ingredients. You can check out my clients' results and reviews on my website, simplyjustskincare.com. In 30 days, my clients have reported more hydrated skin, less appearance of fine lines and wrinkles, and more of an overall glow. Our top sellers include our Repair Toner, our Hydrating Undo Serum with hyaluronic acid, and more. I am offering my listeners 20% off their first order with code PODCAST. Check it out in the link in my show notes to get glowing today.
Yeah, I love that too. I think that's just such a good way to look at social media in general, because then you're not like, oh, I'm so jealous,
Right.
or I wish my house, I've said this, I wish my house looked like that. But yeah, I feel like, especially when I see homes that are like just beautiful or like a perfect kitchen, I'm always like, good for her.
Right.
Like that's
Right.
what I would love that. That looks gorgeous. I love that style. And it feels better than being like, ugh, like, negative
Right.
about it.
Right. Or I have to do that, or I'll just save it. I'll be like, I'll save this for I'm going to change the kitchen file one day. But you're right. I remember seeing someone on, I think it was Instagram, that showed her kitchen, and it was like an 80s or 90s kitchen. And she just wanted to normalize, like,
Yeah.
this is what some of the kitchens are, and it's okay. And I'm happy. And I was like, well, that's cool too.
That's so cool. I love that. And it's true. Like you do, and you see a lot of people that really thrive online
Mm-hmm.
by showing the not perfect stuff, because I think people are like, oh gosh, thank goodness. Me too.
Right.
That it makes them feel less alone, I think, for sure, when you see that. And I know you have children. You have
Many. Yes.
you have many children. And
Many.
so I can imagine throughout time, and as your kids have gotten older, like you go through stages too where the holidays look different, you as they did back then to now. And I think there's been times in my mind where I'm like, I used to do these big dinners and I would
Mm-hmm.
host, and I really loved cooking. Like my family would be like, what can I bring? And I'd be like, just drinks. Like I
Mm-hmm.
have it. And now I'm just like, please bring something, because my life has changed, and the joy of cooking with one child
Mm-hmm.
that was a baby that could just sit down in his little swing, to now it's like so different. And so what I do has changed.
Right.
So tell me about that with you, and because you have a lot more kids than I do.
Well, it's going to change no matter what. I mean, let me just tell you, the shopping list changes a great deal from just being able to go to Target and go down the toy aisle. Now the shopping list, I'm like, you guys, are you kidding? Like an Xbox, a phone, like the dollar amount changes, or what they expect. And in some ways, the magic changes a little bit. It's just a different feel, and it's not necessarily that it's bad. It's just that life is moving in that way. Like, they're getting older, the things that they love are more important. And again, it's about adapting. That being said, my husband, he's written a bunch of stories and done podcasts on Santa Claus. He loves Christmas, and every Christmas Eve, he decorates our house so it's magical, even for our teens, and they love it. Like, they might not say it, but they still do. And I think that's the cool part, is there's some of the stuff they might get older and be like, oh, it doesn't really matter, I just want an iPod or iPad. But then when they get older, those little things like lights everywhere, that's what they love.
Oh, it is special, and it is fun to be able to create those
Mm-hmm.
special memories for our kids. And I feel like this is what I've learned over the years. My son is 13 and I have a
Mm-hmm.
9-year old. And, it's just what I worry about has changed. Things that I used to think were more of a big deal, I've been able to let go, and I've been able to let go of that perfection too. And I think for me, it was more like in the kitchen. Like I had to have everything from scratch. I had
Mm-hmm.
to have all these different sides, and like it had to be, but I really enjoyed doing that. And I think it was stressful for sure. It's always stressful, but I feel like fun too.
Mm-hmm.
And what I kind of was prioritizing as far as like, this is what I really want to focus on. Those have changed. And then also learning, like, I think everyone will still love me if I bring a store-bought pie.
Right, right. That's so true. I go to this meditation class on Tuesday nights, and on the last one every month, they do a potluck. And I have owned that I get something that's already made from Kroger each time. They just know it. I'm like, just because it takes the pressure off, and a lot of times it's, just fruit. And, when you were talking about the cooking thing, I also think that there's a cycle of where you love it, then you had to give it up for a while, and then it can return again because there's all of a sudden more space and more time and all of that. And I've seen that in my own life with years where I just like the Christmas dinner, people, was the same thing. And now I really like prepping it and getting it ready and doing fun things. Last year I made these, I don't know, there are these little strawberries that were supposed to look like Santas, and then they kind of did a little fail, but people love them. So
Cute. It's so fun to try those little things. And I think the kids love that too. It's
they
like,
do.
whether it comes out like,
Right.
it's just fun to get in there and try it. So you have a big community, and they must really resonate with this perfectionist topic and like letting go of that. And I specifically, I'd love to talk about your book, Mom
Okay.
Enough, because I feel like that is so applicable to this topic. Just realizing it's enough, like to give us, like if we said in the beginning, that permission to take some of the pressure off. But how has your community resonated with that topic?
Well, the title Mom Enough came from one of the most viral letters I wrote called Why Being a Mom is Enough. And people have asked me a lot, well, why did you say enough? And it's not that we don't try to do our best or any of that. It's that when push comes to shove, we're enough for our kids. Like that's what they look for. Like about a month and a half ago, my 16-year-old in high school he had a migraine at school, and I drove to school and I waited in the office, and I could see the nurse's office. And as soon as he saw me, he got that look of like relief, like, oh, there's my mom. And it was so powerful. Like that doesn't change. Like they need us to show up. So we're enough on those good days when we're mom, we got all the gold stars. And then we're enough on those days when we're like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to keep pushing through right now, or I'm going to try my best, or I'm going to figure it out. And throughout all of motherhood, like from when my kids were little to now, even letting them go, like my 25-year-old, they'll call sometimes. And sometimes it's like, is this chicken still good? And I'm like, well, did you smell it? Like, but we still have that spot. And that's what being a mom enough is all about. And just today, I talked to my own mom who lives in Minnesota and I'm in Nashville. And it's the same thing, like that, just she's there. She is there for me when I need her.
Oh, I love that. I know it's true. It's like, I think a lot of us, most of us, we really value this role that we've been given as a mom. And, I know for me personally, this is my most important job. And I do have the pressure to make sure I'm doing the best job that I can. And that does get stressful when you don't have those perfect days, or where you mess up or you get upset or whatever. And it's like, I feel like it's the worst feeling in the world.
It is. It is. I mean, it is because we care. I think
Right.
that's the bottom line, is when you have that bad day or when you're overwhelmed. Like when my kids were young, it was overwhelming. Those toddlers, they dump stuff out. You were just giving, giving, giving. And I can remember being like, why is this so hard? I'm being really hard on myself. Like, why is this frustrating me so much? And, it's what really matters is that we just keep trying. It's just this progression. And that's what life is really all about. When you look back at it, it's just a whole bunch of humans who I've never parented. Now my oldest will be 28, a 28-year-old before. Until now, it's like we just figure it out. We keep figuring it out, and we give ourselves grace for the times that we stumble, and a whole lot of grace for those around us.
Yeah. And like when you were saying, like, why is this so hard? And we get frustrated. Like, it's hard. It's just a hard job. It's hard to do. And you're figuring everything out as you go. And then once you get one thing figured out and sorted out, it's a new stage and a new world.
And they're different.
And it's a constant change.
It is. It is. And I always remind myself and other moms that even though we're doing the best we can, they are still independent human beings out there with wills and minds and determination and influences. And sometimes they're going to mess up too. And if I take it on like I'm a bad mom, I'm terrible, all of that, they just need me there. They need me to be that constant for them. That's like, okay, let's not ever do that again, but let's figure it out together because I'm going to be with you.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. So tell us more about your book.
Okay, so Mom Enough, actually, it's a collection of the letters that I've written over the last 10 years and a couple new ones from my website, Finding Joy. And my publisher, which I just love, I'm writing another book with them right now. But then they're like, what we should do is let's take those letters, because everybody asks me all the time, do you have the letters in a book form so I can give it to my friend? They're like, they're talking to you. Let's do this. And so they put them together, and I just call it like your best friend when you need it. So there's these letters that have gone from when I had little ones to the process of letting go with older ones to what it's like to deal with anxiety or when things go crazy. And that in it all, you're still mom enough.
Oh, this is so wonderful. I can't wait to get my copy. Tell everyone where they can find it
Okay.
and where they can find you.
Okay. Well, you can get the book anywhere, major retailer, Amazon, Books A Million, Barnes and Noble, and your independent bookstores, because I'm really pro that as well. And then you can find me on Facebook is where most people find me, at Finding Joy blog, or you can go to my website, findingjoy.net.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll make sure to link all of that in our show notes. And it was so lovely speaking with you. It's so many great tips. I feel like something to keep in mind this holiday season. And I am having an intention for this season. I want to enjoy it. Like you said, like find joy literally in what I'm doing and let go of things that I don't need to do and that bring me stress, and just focus on the things that I really am wanting to do. It's something that I want to add to my season or my family and not feel like it's something that I have to do. I want to like get rid of that.
I love that. That
Yeah.
idea of that you took a breath and decided, I'm going to make this my intention. That's powerful.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It was wonderful meeting you.
Thank you. It
Thanks for
was
being
super
here
fun
with
to
us.
talk.
Yes, I loved it.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please subscribe and review so we can reach more people who want to learn to glow alongside us. See you next time.